Hi, I'm IKEA, and I'm here to give you only the tip. Reanimated Global Event. And as with all global events, we first have to opt into it. We do so by going into the season menu, going into Events Timeline, going to the current global event, which is Reanimated. Once we enter this, we can activate it with this toggle down here. Doing so will also turn off any global modifier, as we can only have a global event or a global modifier on at one time. That will allow us to advance through its challenges, earning stars. Leveling up will earn us stars, and we will get rewards from this reward track depending on the stars, and also we can spend those stars, of course, to get extra caches at the special vendors. One thing that you will notice with the global event turned on is that body shots do the same amount as they always did and just go as fast as they always did, but headshots actually deal a greatly increased amount. Also, any enemy killed with a headshot will create this green cloud effect, a green poison cloud effect, which is basically oxy to the enemies, but also heals us. Any enemy that you kill without a headshot that isn't a medic or a named, as those are excluded from this, will eventually revive, as they do now, and they will have half of their health amount when they get back up, so they are pretty easy to kill, but of course they are still in your way and you still need to deal with them. They will only revive once, so after they get back up, getting revived by the reanimated effect, you can just finish them off afterwards. One thing you can do as well is, while they are underground and still not revived yet, you can actually basically double tap them, finishing them off with a headshot to prevent them from getting back up. And whenever they do get back up, as this enemy shall in a second, they will actually have a shock effect going on for a second. That shock is actually applied by you, and actually the vial effect would trigger off of that as a handy way of dealing with this as well. And that is then also the way to deal with this global event, and that is to kind of aim high, go for headshots, and of course we have a very good talent to make that happen, guaranteed with Determined. And of course, with the much increased headshot damage, we don't actually need to run any full Determines basically. Together with that, the cloud, as we see here, even elites will fall prey to it. And even though, for instance, that enemy got downed without me killing him, I'm not too concerned about him getting back up, because he will be killed by the cloud, as that has pretty large radius and quite a lot of damage as well. Finish that guy off, and that will pick away at this guy. Any enemy that is too close to a wall or such will actually not reanimate anyway as well, meaning that if you catch them close enough to their doorway so that they are not in a position to easily respawn, they won't, as they need to be kind of in the open to do so. And also, of course, that cloud overlapping with itself multiple times is like an oxy effect and will, well, either at the very least heavily damage enemies, if not outright kill them all. That cloud can also be a downside, as it does damage actually friendly things like our hostages over there. If I were to just engage this the way you would think to engage this, as to just murder everything as fast as possible, we see that the hostages are actually taking damage. They're taking damage from the cloud, and they did not survive that engagement this way. That damage will also apply to skills. If I had a turret or a drone within range of mine, that would also take damage. But that is also not as game-breaking as some people make it out to be. There are tactics around it. You have to just be a little bit smarter, work smarter, not harder. And one of the ways is, for instance, this. If we fire, our hostages will kind of run away from some of the enemies. Now, what we can do is actually start removing some of the enemies as they are far enough away from them, and it becomes kind of a mini game of ending enemies, trying to not be within the range of our allies with it. And one or two enemies close to them is not an issue, is not an ender. So for instance, this sniper, if it even was in range. And of course, because of the global event, we can very quickly do any activity, especially if they spawn all together like that. And as always, to round out these videos, we will go to the build collection and I will give some build recommendations. This, of course, will be a link down below together with the builds that we'll show here, starting here with standard hotshot, in this case with the Chainkiller Aroldi, or Chainkiller Gift, if you were to choose to go that route. And this, of course, is the classic Headhunter. Works really well for here, especially with Determined. Determined is, of course, one of the easy ways to deal with this global event. If you don't want to go with Determined, that is perfectly fine as well. You can replace basically either the talent or the weapon with, for instance, a Mantis, or the talent with Preservation or other tools like Ranger, which can be really nice as well. Going this Chainkiller with Hotshot route is pretty easy, of course, to set up, is more than enough damage, and actually is way too much damage, honestly. Of note as well, we'll go to the Habsburg version, which even has more damage, so it's even more overkill, but sometimes overkill is also nice, and of course, easy ways to get with this global event, and some even easy shenanigans, like just putting an Achilles pulse on some enemies. We can reach a 300 million quite easily with a Nemesis, with a cap shot. But the one thing that I want to make a note of here to talk about is that the Habsburg, of course, normally would come with blue cores. This version is much harder to get, of course, so it would be damage-wise even more overkill. But what we could do, and that is what I used to do on my hardcore character, is to go all blue core on this setup. That also means, of course, that the Habsburg pieces can stay with their blue core, making them much easier to get, as we just basically need Headshot on there or Headhunter, and then we can put Headshot on there, or it has Headshot on it already, and we'll put Headhunter there. That's all we kind of need. The other stat, weapon handling, that we would like to have, doesn't per se need to be there. We keep the core blue, we find some Hotshot pieces that have Headshot on them already, and go blue core on them as well. Going, for instance, 4 blue cores already feels a lot better. Of course, we can just kind of stand in front of enemies quite easily. Together with that, yeah, we could still have more than enough killing power because of Reanimated. So yeah, that is, for instance, a decent setup. Another way we can go as well, of course, is with pistol Headhunters, here with the Headhunter's Fury, with the Memento version. Here we could, of course, be Regulus if we don't want to be Determined, but Determined, of course, is really good for this. Although as well, of note, the Regulus explosion would just kill the enemies outright without it being a headshot. They would get back up. The Cloud generally will deal with that anyway, so it's not too hard to run that. But yeah, Determined Harvest is, of course, really easy to go with as well. And this setup, of course, has, we could even make it a little bit more blue if we wanted to, blue cores, and have a Bulwark, and still very much easily start on a purple and go from there, and have more than enough firepower to deal even with names. And of course, this kind of setup will then as well have pretty good armor on kill and such. And that is also my way of going for this, is generally you can give up a lot of damage and still be very effective. Here going, for instance, with the Headhunter Tech Tank. And this is, of course, a setup that we already kind of discussed and build showcased. And what it is that it's giving up basically a lot of damage, but it's doing so in a predetermined or like well thought out way, at least I believe so, of being able to kill a red starting out, and then going to a red or a purple, and then going to elites and above from the 3rd shot onwards. And this kind of setup as well then has a really strong shield to kind of hide behind tech tank style, together with as well the Memento version, of course, which even has a stronger shield, for instance here. Both of those versions I very much enjoy for this global event, as we're giving up a lot of damage, but of course with the extra reanimated damage, this even can start on elite still, which is basically all we need, right? And then we have the survivability that this kind of setup provides us, together with the easy handling, especially with the Ninja Bike version, where we have insane amounts of handling, making for very quick reloads and making the build feel much nicer as well. And that's generally what I would say for this global event, is be definitely prepared to just give up some damage. That's kind of fine. The enemy doesn't care if you kill it with a 10 million shot, which would kill basically any elite, or 100 million shot. You're wasting basically those extra 90 million if you're putting that into the enemy. Much more so, I would recommend just yeah, going for comfort, giving yourself a few blue cores so that you can much more easily stand out in the open, take more hits, don't die as much. And that is my go-to with this as well. And this build very much is my pick for this global event. And yeah, so we come to the conclusion of this video. If you did enjoy it, please do any and all of the algorithm things down below. It does help out, so I'll do that little bit of shilling here. And thank you for joining me. And this was Only the Tip.